I feel like probably for me personally, I had a miscarriage initially, and then I had 18 months of infertility until I was diagnosed with the prolactin problem. And then I was medicated to conceive Lenny. So at the time when I felt pregnant, it felt too good to be true. And I sort of went into denial a little bit, and I didn't announce it to anyone. And I just carried on thinking, I don't want to say it out loud because then I'll get attached and it'll be worse for me. And I know that doesn't really make sense when I say it out loud, but that's how I was sort of processing things. Like, I feel like my body has already failed me once with the miscarriage, and then it failed me again by not being able to fall pregnant naturally. And then now this has happened. This just doesn't happen to me because my body doesn't do this sort of thing. So then when I had this birth, which was absolutely euphoric, I mean, I had the best experience of birth ever. I mean, I felt like a superwoman when I birthed this baby. And then after that, the breastfeeding sort of got me, and I was like, I knew my body wasn't what I wanted it to be. Like, I started getting all them like niggly doubts back in. Yeah. And I was like, okay. But then when I established it and I found the right people to give me the right support, I was like, no, do you know what? I'm so proud of this body. Like, I can do this. I trust my boobs. I trust my body. I trust my baby. Like, my body's birthed this baby and I can feed it. Like, this is it. Like, I can do this, completely do it. And now I've done it and I'm so happy. I initially thought that I'd have this baby and I would be so keen to get back to work. So I was a forensic nurse down south, and I was working in a police station. So I absolutely loved it. There was always a bit of drama and, you know, it was quite exciting and stuff. But once I had the baby, it all changed. And I just thought, I don't really want that anymore. I just want to be mum. I never imagined I'd be like that, but I've just loved every minute of being with her. Maybe about 3 months ago, I was like, right, if I'm not going back to work, I want to do something with my time. So I went and I volunteered in a local breastfeeding group. So I'm a peer supporter there for the breastfeeding group. Oldest of 3, and we were all breastfed, but not for a massive amount of time. I think I was probably the longest at about 5 or 6 months. And then my brother and sister were even less than that. So like, my auntie breastfed, like all the females in the family did breastfeed. And I was just like, yeah, that's something I want to do. And then my friend breastfed for a year and I was like, oh, this is amazing. And like, she was telling me all the positive stuff about it. And I was like, oh, like, yeah, this is what I want to do. And then when it came to my turn, it was, yeah, wasn't that easy. But I found an amazing woman called Rachel Fitz-D, and she literally saved my breastfeeding journey. And yeah, I love feeding her. Like, I absolutely love feeding her, and the connection that we've got, and just how easy it is now I've established it and stuff. And I had Lenny down south. It was just me and my husband. We had no family support or anything like that because we were all on our own. The first night I stayed overnight, and they said they'd provide me with some support. And they just like put me in this little side ward and was like, right, there you go. And I was like, okay, like, don't really know what I'm doing here. And then I was just waiting for her to wake up, and I was like, well, you feed on demand. I've heard all this, like, you feed on demand and stuff. And it was hours later, and I was just like, this baby's not waking up. She was just zonked after the birth. And I was like, okay. And then I heard the midwives bring another lady in, and they were like, make sure you wake her up after 2 to 3 hours and give her a little feed. And I was like, it's been like 6 hours and I've not woke my baby up. Oh my God. And I went and I was like, excuse me, like, no one's told me this. Like, can someone come and help me? And they were just like, you should have woke your baby up. And I was like, but no one told me and I didn't know that. Oh. So then she was just like really sleepy and she wouldn't go on, and I'd harvest some colostrum and stuff. So I sent my husband home to get that. We were giving her that, trying to get it on. And they were just coming and like pushing her face onto my boob, and I was going, oh, okay. And they were like, yeah, her latch is fine. When she got weighed, she'd lost about 11.5% of their birth weight. And they were like threatening like hospital and put me on a feeding plan. and it was just really, really intense. I ended up pumping, breastfeeding, and giving her a top up of formula as well at the beginning. And I think I fed her more tears than actual milk in the first few days because it was just super stressful. So I remember phoning one of the support workers who came out to see me, and she was lovely, but they all kept telling me I had low supply and to do power pumping and pump, like you need to get your supply up. And I was like, okay. Was doing that, and I was just like losing my mind, just trying to feed this baby who's just crying and crying, and I'm crying. And she just mentioned this Rachel Fitz-D, and I thought, I'm gonna try and see what she's about. And she was just amazing, like just so logical and so like calming and reassuring. It was just unreal. Like, and she just said, listen, like, you've birthed this baby. There's no reason you can't breastfeed your baby. Like, you've got this. And I was like, she's right. I have got this. Like, I have birthed a baby. There's no reason I can't. She's got like this little technique where she calls it bung the baby on the boob technique rather than latching and attaching. And I was like, okay, I'll give it a go. I'll try anything. And I bung the baby on the boob, and it worked. And she put loads of weight on, and that was it, like, game changer. And I thought, okay then, that was easy enough. I met her when Lenny was about just over a week old, and she like, right, listen, you've got this. And I was like, okay.
Yeah.
And then the next issue I was like, Rachel, and she was like, you've got this, come on. And like, these people do come in and they just like change your world, don't they? Because at that moment, that's exactly what you need. I don't go into town or anything very often just because of COVID and stuff. I was quite careful. And so yeah, I just basically feed wherever and wherever we are. I've never had a negative comment, but I think that's sometimes the confidence that you've got with it. Because there's a couple of girls in the breastfeeding group who've been like, oh, like someone said something or someone looked at me like this. And I'm like, really? And they're like, yeah, you never had it. And I'm like, I might just be a little bit blind to it. Or maybe it's just because I've got like a, I dare you to come at me sort of attitude. Generally, I just feed wherever we are. Like the other day, I was in the park with her and she came up to me and asked me for milk. And I was like, yeah, if you want, it's fine. And I was with a friend whose son's about 4 or 5. And she was like, oh God, don't really want him seeing that because he'll be starting to ask me questions. And I was like, I'm not bothered. I'll answer any question that he's got.